Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King Jonathan Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit PastTheWire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I would like to think is a very special episode of Past the Wire TV. I am fortunate enough today to be joined by Matt Carothers. Really needs no introduction. Fan Duel, TVG personality, well-known, not only handicapper, but student of the game, horse racing enthusiast, and just a great personality for the sport. Matt, thank you so much for coming on, and I think we got a really great topic to talk about today.
My pleasure coming on, Jonathan. I admire your work, what you do, your podcast, your articles, what you've done for the game. So thrilled to be on, and it's a topic that I enjoy discussing immensely.
Appreciate it. Now, how this show came about is I was watching Matt on TV the other day, and it's something we've all watched Matt for years, but something I did not know was that Matt's dad was a Pick 6 player way back when the Pick 6 was a $2 wager. It was what I will call a traditional Pick 6 that today is ultimately extinct. And I thought it was a fascinating topic because Matt's dad was a Pick 6 player, introduced Matt to horse racing. My dad was a mutual clerk, introduced me to horse racing, and ultimately I became a Pick 6 player. My dad never really was. He was kind of like my rooter, and he's the one. I never gave myself the name the Pick 6 King. My dad gave me that after I hit a few big ones as a joke, and it just stuck amongst my friends and the people I used to go to the racetrack with. But I never gave myself that name, but I just thought it was such an interesting parallel, with your dad and your relationship and how that evolved, and my situation, which was a little different but similar in the role. So I just thought it was a great topic, and also it would give us an opportunity to talk about a wager that's really a great wager and was a great way to make big scores in the sport that unfortunately has just gone by the wayside due to I guess the large menu of wagering opportunities that they have today, and the lesser denominations, the 50-cent Pick 4s and Pick 5s have just drained the Pick 6 pool and taken away those $2 Pick 6 opportunities, which I think were a challenge, and I think, were a great bet when they were around. Your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Pick 5 like everybody else. So I'm glad there's a Pick 5. I'm personally not a big player. I'd say I'm medium to fairly big. I don't like the Pick 4s, particularly for 50 cents. I wish they were for $1. Because I'm a price player. You like that 8-to-1 shot, and for $1, a lot of people aren't going to have that shot. For 50 cents, you can cover yourself, and you can go so deep in so many legs in a Pick 4 and not spend a lot of money. But in terms of the Pick 6, we were talking a little before we started the show. Back in the day when my dad was playing, obviously the Pick 6 started at Cayente, and then Marge Everett, brought it to Hollywood Park. back, what, 84-ish, sometime in that period. My dad started playing a little bit after that. And he was a pretty big bettor. He bet all sports. He was the guy that was leaving the kitchen table to call the line to see how the Knicks were doing against the Pistons. Right. We talk about pitching matchups, Randy Jones versus Valenzuela in San Diego. So I kind of grew up with this. I mean, I was answering the phone when his guys were calling him to see what he wanted to do for that day. So I was kind of immersed in this at a young age. And so he was a good gambler. His dad was a very good player at the racetrack. They used to go to the fairgrounds back when he used to pick up my dad. His father, or my grandfather, worked for Gulf Oil in New Orleans. My dad went to school at Newman, where the Mannings went to school. Tom Amos went to school there. And he used to pick up his dad, and they'd go to the fairgrounds for the late double. And that was a big wager back then. So he's always liked the multi-wagers. And as somebody who is pretty good and had a little bit of money and had a lot of confidence, the pick six was the wager for him. And he immediately called it the thinking man's lottery. That's what he deemed it. That's what he coined it. And that was his way of potentially making a giant score. And he immediately had some success with it. But in the beginning, a lot of even the serious horse players didn't really understand the pick six that well. The first time he played it, he played a $216 ticket and got knocked out of the first leg. He's like, oh crap, here we go, knocked out of the first leg. And then he got hot and had all these long shots. And the guy he was with knew a little bit more than him at that point in time and said, maybe nobody at 6'5" might pay pretty well. Right. And it paid $33,000. And he went to the window to get $33,000, and they handed him $66,000. And he thought it was a mistake, and he felt kind of guilty. Should I do something? Should I say something? And he didn't. And then he found out that the leg that he missed, that first leg, he went too deep. So he had it twice for $66,000. And you hit for $66,000 in your first bet on a $216 wager. It becomes contagious.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of mistakes that people used to make is they didn't realize that when you actually hit the pick six, okay, you would get paid for all those pick fives as well.
Yes.
So if you had a $200 or $500 ticket, you had to pick six, you may have a dozen or 15, 16 pick fives as well. Sometimes the pick five is $1,000 or $1,200 for the 5 out of 6. So there's another 12, 15, 16,000 on top of the win. So I love the thinking man's lottery name, because it really was. And back then, I think what made it so tough and what separated it from all the other wages is it really forced you, unless you just had an unlimited bankroll and didn't care, it forced you to really handicap and really take a position. You had to really take a position. And if you're a player who considers value like yourself and likes prices, and you're looking for a race where you can maybe single or go narrow, you didn't look for that 8-5 or 6-5 shot. You kind of looked for, or at least me, I would always look for a single that was not the single everybody else had, because that would give me room and leverage in the other legs to maybe create some separation. And back then, the carryover days were great, okay, but I played them primarily at Naira, okay, and even on the non-carryover days, okay, I mean, I remember hitting 1 or 2 at Saratoga that on non-carryover days, the only ticket was 125,000 in the pool, where today you just don't see that. And the Rainbow Six, I'm not a fan of. No. And it's become a bet really that I make twice a year now. I'll play the pick six on Kentucky Derby Day and on the Breeders' Cup Saturday. I used to convince myself that it was worth playing the Rainbow Six on the mandatory payout days when the pools were very big. And I ultimately stopped doing that. And my philosophy was, well, it's a 20-cent bet. So really, a $2,000 ticket to be a $20,000 ticket on a conventional pick six, and then it's the mandatory payout. But when you have that 20 cent in there, it it just reduces, there's too many winning tickets to have that edge unless you get really fluky results. So a lot of times on those big mandatory payout days, you'll see the tickets come back shorter than I think they should. So
Yes.
it just
Well, yeah, you can have
not worth it.
you can have a great handicapping day. You can pick a 20-to-1 shot, a 10-to-1 shot, and really not make a lot of money. And I really don't understand the smaller to medium tracks that do it. It's like literally you could have an unbelievable day. So what? You get the pool. The pool's nothing. And the pool's so small at these tracks. I used to like it back in the day personally, as somebody who was kind of a medium type player. At Canterbury back in the late 90s, when I was working there, they would guarantee 10,000. It's not a lot to you or my dad, but to me that was great. I was in my 20s. That was a lot of money, and I knew that people like you and my dad weren't playing it. Right. You're playing Southern California. You're playing something else. You're not interested in the 10,000 guarantee at Canterbury. So I hit a bunch of those over a couple of summers, and I knew if I didn't hit it, there was only about 4 or 5 other guys that you probably hit it today, right? I didn't hit it, and there was 2 winning tickets. It was you and you. So that was great when small tracks would guarantee a decent enough pool for people that are 48, 72, 96, 120, $144 type players. But the funny thing is that my dad, I totally forgot about this when I was talking to him yesterday, telling him I was doing this show and kind of just picking his brain a little bit and getting some great stories. He reminded me that back in the day, he thinks that it was Clint Goodrich who was the general manager at Santa Anita. Okay. And he got rid of the pick 6 for a brief period. And I was like, really? I don't remember that at all. He's like, you know why he did that? I was like, no, because he felt like it was an unfair advantage for big players and that small players were investing too much money in it and they couldn't win. And that was affecting churn. So he got rid of it. You know who the people that bitched and complained about it? Oh, the small players. Really? They're the ones that wanted it back because, there's a reason why the lottery is so right. It's a chance at a life-changing sport. Obviously, and this is again the thinking man's lottery, as we already talked about. But you have hope for a big score. There's hope before every pick 6 begins. There's hope, whether it's a $48 ticket or a $96 ticket, and small tickets and big tickets sometimes can look kind of the same, as you know. I might have a small ticket, you have a bigger ticket. We might have 4 races the same. But in one race, you went 5 deep and I singled. Another race, you went 2 deep and I singled. Your ticket's 10 times more than mine, and 4 of the 6 legs are the same. So if you can get hot, even as a small player, you have a shot. And they're the ones that requested it back. They like that hope. They like that chance of a lifetime type score. Yeah, no, I agree. Another interesting thing that your dad would remember from back then is the biggest pick 6 that I ever hit was $550,000 at Saratoga. Okay. And back then I was alive in the last leg with 2 horses. One was Turk Passer, who won, who was a price horse, Anthony Margada trained. And the other was a horse named, I want to say London Lime or London Leam or something like that, who was the favorite. I was alive with 2 horses in the last leg. It was a turf race at Saratoga. Back then, they didn't put up the pick 6 will pays. Yes. So you had no idea what you were alive for. Now, there was a huge carryover and there was some upsets. You know what I mean? I don't remember all the races, but I remember there was like a 3 to 5 shot a horse named Mr. Faversham, I want to say, that Gaspar Moschera trained. He was very hot back then. Gaspar. And he went down at 3 to 5. So I knew it was a nice ticket, but I didn't know how much. And when Turk Passer won, they put up, 550,000. And I was like, wow. The funny part of this story is I found out later that there were 2 winners. Okay. The other winner was a local waitress from Saratoga who bet like $8 on her daughter's house numbers. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. I don't begrudge anybody winning, but if I'm going to split that pot, I'd rather split it with a hardcore player, but maybe she needed the money. So God bless her. She won, but man, I split the pot with a waitress who played the bet for the first time, played her daughter's house numbers, invested $8. And I just thought that was hysterical. In a weird way, that's a bad beat. Right.
Right,
In
right.
a weird way. And so the only thing I'll read what he wrote. This is a bad beat story from him. I thought this is great. It won't take that long, so I'm going to read it. He said there was a triple carryover at Del Mar. I
Okay.
loved the horse in the final leg that had a 20-1 morning line. Don't remember his name, but he knew that David Flores was aboard. So he
Okay.
singled the horse on all 4 tickets. And he didn't play. His tickets total about $1,500. My long shot won and paid $80, but I didn't hit the pick 6. I had all 6 winners, but not on 1 ticket. So he played multiple tickets, and he didn't have them all on 1 ticket. 5 and 6 paid like $2,800, and I had it many times. And I hit a huge pick 3. I collected over $30,000. Left feeling miserable because he should have hit the pick 6. And when they put up the payout, at first he thought it was $110,000. It was $1.1 million.
Wow.
So the horse that he keyed that paid $80 wins a pick 6 that pays $1.1 million. He has 6 of 6, but not on the together on his combined tickets. So sometimes even for me, the days in which you win big, you can deal with, if your opinion stinks, you got to be able to deal with it, or else you shouldn't be a serious player, because you're gonna have a lot
100%.
of those days where every horse you like, this horse will get the lead. He breaks 7th. This horse misses. You just have a bad day. It happens. It might happen today. It might happen tomorrow. You might have a bunch of them in a row.
Yeah.
But it's the days in which you're hot, and those bad days are coming. You need to make as much money as you can. And sometimes the days in which you have giant scores, you're happy, but you're not completely satisfied because you should have made more.
Right. And that was one of those days, I mean, I could have easily had 1.1 instead of, 550,000. Funny thing with me, and I don't know if your dad was the same way or not, but in all my pick 6 memories, I talk more about and I'm not a sadomasochist or anything like that, but I enjoy talking.
Oh, yes, you are. You're a horse player.
well, maybe. Right.
Yes, you are. You
Point,
definitely are.
Point taken. Point taken.
With that.
Point taken. I like talking about the bad beats for some reason. I don't mind, telling them. And 2 that come to mind for me. Okay. And one of them I actually won. I hit the pick 6 and it paid like $32,000 or $36,000, and most people would be ecstatic. And I remember coming home crying, and people were like, "Why are you crying? You won 30-something thousand." I was alive. It was a Breeders' Cup day, and I was alive in the last leg with the Awesome Again 3-horse entry and Swain. And Swain, that was the day that he just kept under the left-handed whip going wide.
I was alive in the pick 6 to Swain.
Okay.
I swear.
All right, I believe you. So then
I was like, Detroit, hit him again left-handed. Hit him again left-handed.
I don't understand it. Okay, I couldn't understand it. And now Swain was like 7 or 8 to 1. Awesome Again was the 3-horse entry favorite. Like I said, it paid 30-something thousand. I don't know what the spread was, so I don't know what that race cost me. But I always felt like it was more than I thought, and it could have been easily $500,750,000.
Oh, you always remember where you were for your big hits and your big. I was actually working at the Meadowlands. They were open for the Breeders' Cup, and they had a special show. And I was up on the sports bar old area there at the Meadowlands watching that and just screaming at the TV while I was working for Vittori. One of the great riders of all time, even back then. He was, and it was just maybe his worst ride ever in a big moment. Swain. That was at Churchill, right?
I harbored that was at Churchill Downs, absolutely. I harbored that beat for years and years, and I never heard a decent explanation from him on it. Okay, never read anything, never heard anything, and finally, about 2 years ago, I want to say the last time the Breeders' Cup was at Santa Anita, I ran into Frankie, and I speak Italian, so we were able to have a conversation, and I was like, "Listen, I got to ask you something, and I got to ask you like heart to heart, and you got to give me an answer." And he says, "I know what you're going to ask me." I'm like, "No, you don't." He goes, "I guarantee I know." I said, "I want to know what happened in the Breeders' Cup with Swain." And he looked at me and he smiled. He goes, "Okay, you got me. That's not what I thought you were going to ask me. I definitely thought you were going to ask me about the drugs or about something like that." I said, "No, that personal stuff. That's,
You're right on Swain affected me. What your personal stuff doesn't affect me."
Right. I said, but Swain, I got to know what happened. And his answer was great. It was from the heart, you know what I mean? And, you know, he just looked at me and, you know, he said, listen, he goes, I was a young rider. He goes, I got so much adrenaline in me. I got so excited. We were coming down the stretch. He goes, I just totally got in the zone and was just digging, never realizing what I was doing or how far out the horse was getting. He goes, if I could ever have a race back, it was that one. He goes, and that was the race that taught me, no matter how much excited or adrenaline or pumped up I get in the moment, to keep my head and know everything what's going on. He goes, that race made me a better rider. He goes, but he goes, I messed up that day. He goes, no question, no, you know, no question about it. And I thought it was a great answer. And I finally felt like, you know, it is what it is. And he's paid that back many times, because he's given so many great rides and had, you know, probably one of the greatest careers of any rider on the world stage. But I finally got to ask him face to face, and that was what he said. And can we agree as avid race watchers, now that you were alive as well, so I know you feel the pain, Swain absolutely could have won that race. I don't think that's a subjective thing. I think we can easily say if he straightens him out, goes to right hand,
he wins.
Right, no question.
No, I think taking bias out of the equation and just watching that race, which pains me every once in a while on the network, will some reason flashback to that race, Breeders' Cup moment or something. I'm just like, oh God, it's really, it's 20, whatever the hell it is, 24 years. And it's
feels like yesterday to me.
Quarter of a century. And it's still very difficult to watch. No, I think for sure he wins that race. Yeah, right. I remember that. I singled re-raise. I think that he Craig Velocity, Nakatani. He was he was the youngest trainer at the time, I think, to win a Breeders' Cup race. Craig Velocity. That was to Haas Dickinson.
Right. We had the same single. Re-raise was my single also. Wow.
Right, because that's back when the Vosburg moronically 7 furlongs, and they had no chance against West Coast speed at 6 furlongs. And a firm success for Schosberg was favored. In that race. And I think re-raise was second choice. I'm like, re-raise is so much faster than anybody in this field. It's not even be competitive. I think he's a 3-year-old too.
I think he was,
if I recall. And he got the lead and just crushed gate to wire. So it'd be a good day like we talked about, but it could have been a great day.
I wound up hitting it anyway. I don't know if you did. I hit it, but that was one of those days that people outside of racing can't understand how you could hit the pick 6 for 30-something thousand and come home and feel like a loser. You know what I mean?
Right. No. And then also, my dad also reminded me back in the day that what they started doing in Southern California, which he liked, was they would guarantee $1 million.
Right.
In the pick 6. And every time they did that, they bet like $1 million, 3 or 4. The track was happy. The bettors were happy. Everyone was happy. Then, and it kind of got into a little, you know what, contest between the tracks in Southern California. And so then one of them would say, hey, at $2 million, we're gonna $2 million guarantee, and it would go over 2.3. And then my dad's like, they went to 2.5 for some silly reason. And then they went to 3. And once they went to 3, the pool was like 2.4.
Right.
And so they just abolished it and got rid of it altogether. I said, why didn't they just go back to 2 or 1? He's like, no, because most people in racetrack management not very bright. I mean, it's like they should have done that, but they got scared at that point that the guarantee wasn't even close to being met, but they went too high. They went to $3 million. So they got rid of that completely at that point in time. I think this was back in the 90s as well.
Right. You know, it was such a tough bet. You know, and for me, back when I was doing it in the late 80s, early 90s, all the way through the 90s, really, that was my livelihood. That's what I did. And how your dad used to say, he had a goal to hit, 2 a meet
at Del Mar.
My goal wasn't that lofty. My goal was, if I could hit 3 or 4 over the year, I'm going to do well. I'm going to make money. You know what I mean? Because, I would hit those big ones, and, some stand out, like
patience. You got to have patience.
You got to have patience. You got to have discipline. Like, I would bet the pick 6, and that would be the only bet I made for the day most of the time. You know what I mean? So a lot of times you get knocked out, your singles running, you want to bet them. I would pass because my bankroll was essentially in my pocket and in my dresser drawer, you know? So I had to be disciplined and conservative. I had to play aggressively, but I also had to, you know, make sure I had enough money to go after them when I wanted to go after them, or when there was a carryover, or when there was just a card that I loved. You know, I
But the
remember
pick six was also, it was the wager that was so fun. I remember my dad would go to the track, and you know, he'd go to San Anita a lot in the winter, and he'd go to Del Mar, and then they had that the seaside simulcasting area next to Del Mar, and he would go out there in the winter and stay there for 2 or 3 months. And it's all the regulars, you know, everybody, and just talking about the pick six and people coming and wanting his opinion and all that stuff. I mean, he loved that. It was so totally different from the times where he had a box at Del Mar, and how lucky am I? I should be a much better horse player than I am. I kind of grew up sitting in a box with my dad, Beyer, Jim Quinn, Brohammer, sometimes Roxy, to be in the box. And it was great because I would sit there and like, I thought I knew what I was doing. And every once in a while, they'd talk, but not that much. Every once in a while I go to my dad, I'm like, this Beyer like in the seventh. My dad's like, I don't know. Every once in a while they talk to each other, like, Andy would like, Gibson, what's your opinion in the eighth or whatever. And my dad might do the same thing to somebody else. But a lot of times they were competitive. And even though they were good friends sitting in the same box having dinner later that night, they wouldn't even compare notes all that much. Because, a lot, as you know, this sounds egotistical, but there's a lot of ego. There's ego involved too. The money is the most important thing, but hitting the scores and kind of being the man, and that was part of the whole thing, I think, in terms of the pick six scene in Southern California.
Oh no, it was like that everywhere. I remember Pete Rose got mad at me one time. I used to sit. It was at the old Gulfstream before they rebuilt it. There was a little section in the restaurant on the first floor in the clubhouse that was like behind the maitre d' stand. And Murray Durst, guy that owned Lil's Lad, owned a bunch of. He had a table there. A friend of mine, Joe from Buffalo, had a table there. Pete Rose used to get a table there when he sat. It was a little private like thing. And, I was known as the pick six guy because I always used to go after the pick sixes. And there was a big carryover one day and Pete Rose came, and he used to back then come with a stack of about 40, 50,000 in hundreds on his table. Okay. And he would send his girlfriend to the window every race. And a lot of days that stack would wind up down to nothing. Okay. So one day he comes with another guy, not his girlfriend, and he comes over and he goes, listen, he goes, I know you're playing the pick six today. There's a carryover. I said, I am. He goes, I'll stake the pick six. I'll put up the money and we go partners, you know, on your horses. And I says, Pete, I love you. All due respect. No, thank you. He goes, why not?
You don't partner with anyone, probably.
He goes, he says, why not? I said, because I don't want to split the pool with anybody. I don't, you or anybody else. He goes, but I'm going to pay for the ticket. You don't have to risk anything. I said, but that's what I do. I risk the money. You know what I mean? That's what I do. And he couldn't understand my logic, like why. I'm like, no, that's a lose for me. If we hit it, it's a lose for me. He goes, but I'm putting up the money. I'll put up anything you want to invest. To make it worse.
Yeah, Pete, your 10,000 doesn't cover the 200,000. I might get less because I split it with you. Yeah.
Right. And to make it worse, I hit it and it paid 126,000. So he walked out mad, and I think this was in the 90s. I think he's still mad to this day. To this day over it. But
I've heard some good Pete Rose stories because I know he used to go to the old River Downs.
Yeah,
all the time. There was a certain room up there. I know a couple of guys that basically were in that room all the time too, that have told me some really great Pete Rose stories.
He was a fun guy to hang around.
Yeah, that's all right.
He was, but he just got mad. He just didn't understand why I didn't want to go partners with him, and even with him staking the ticket. And I was like, no, I just don't do that.
Another thing, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but you mentioned something earlier about how there was no will pays. My dad still, his first big score, I think, was in the spring of '88. It's kind of funny. He still has the check for it. He actually sent me a photo of it. So, and I think he got like a lot of people, the stock market crash was '87. Right. like in, what is it, September, October. It was like late summer, early fall, I think, of 87. And it was not good for him, who invested in the market. And so he hit the pick six at Santa Anita. And, as you mentioned, no will pick. So you don't know if you're the only ticket or not. He said, well, the greatest thing he's ever heard in his life at that point in time was when Trevor came out and said, ladies and gentlemen, in today's pick six, there is one.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. He said, so I mean, it was like 130 something thousand. It was the whole pool. And I think he walked away with 119. So he told me he wanted a check for 100 and then 19,000 in cash. And he told me also back then, it was interesting. You go to the windows and this first big score, it's like, how am I gonna, they just have like these blocks of money. It's like blocks of 5,000, right? They just kind of hand to you. And he's like, he didn't have a jacket. It was like he's walking away with like these blocks of cash. It's like, it's kind of a weird thing when everyone sees you with all this money.
Your dad's gonna love this story. Okay, I hope he watches this. Okay.
Yeah.
Great pick six story. Okay. Two of them. I gotta say, I'm gonna be.
Okay.
One of them was, I hit it at Gulfstream. Okay. Secret Status. I remember.
Oh,
okay. She won the last race. I want to say it was an allowance race at Gulfstream. She won the last race. She was my single. Paid $120-something thousand. Okay. So I cashed the ticket with this Jean rather. She was there at Gulfstream for years and years and years. Used to work the very first window when you walked in the clubhouse. My mom and dad were with me. Okay.
That's
so
awesome.
I cashed the ticket, all cash, comes up $100-something thousand. She's got to order the money from the money room. She gets it. So where do you want me to put the money? I'm like, I don't know. She finds an old beat up Publix supermarket plastic bag, stuffs the money in there. And by now we're 15-20 minutes after the last race. So the place is clearing out. Okay. So a Pinkerton, one of the racetrack cops, they don't call him Pinkertons in Florida. He was actually a Hallandale Beach police officer. Comes over, sees there's a lot of money going on and goes, you want me to walk you to your car? I said, hey, I don't mind. My car's the first one right outside. I used to valet park and they used to back my car up right up to the door. So my mom, my dad, and me walk out and I've got the bag, okay, of like 120,000, okay, this old Publix bag. And we walk out and we walk to my car, okay? So as soon as we get out to the car, all right, I take some money out of the bag and I give every valet guy that's around $100 and I give the cop $100, right? And he gladly takes it. We get in the car and we drive off. So my mom is sitting next to me. My dad's in the back and I'm driving. And my mom's like, you're not smart at all. She goes, I think you'd be smarter than that. And I'm like, what? We had a great day. What are you talking about? She goes, you, like a big shot, got to pull out all that money and be giving hundreds out all over the place. She goes, somebody liable to be following us now and rob us. I says, Mom, it doesn't matter. I said, trust me. We walked out 15 minutes after the last race with a Hallandale Beach cop with his hand on his gun, carrying a bag full of money. Everybody around knew that we had a really, really good day. Doesn't matter who I gave any money to.
Yeah, it was too late for that.
Right, exactly. I'm like, so don't even worry about
that, Mom.
The other thing is, same thing that happened to your dad. Hit the pick six at Gulfstream again one day, and I'm out on the apron. Okay, no will pays. And I'm standing next to my friend. He's like, what did it pay? What did it pay? I'm like, I don't know. I'm waiting for them to put it up. And I heard that's when Tom Durkin used to call at Gulfstream. That's how long ago this was. Yeah. I heard Tom go, there was one winner of the pick six. And I was like, yes. And that also was about 100,000. So
that moment. But even so Canterbury opened up in, God, what year was it? 85, I think. And this is obviously way before simulcasting, right? And it was bizarre. The people in Minnesota bet, and there was a pretty good product. And like Lucas had horses there, and you had some good riders. You had some stuff going on. Ron Hansen was riding there, but you had some really good barns. And before simulcasting, people were playing the pick six, and a lot of the best pick six players in the country, like a guy named Scott Miller, who is probably the best player I've ever known. He's never had a job in his life, and I don't think he's ever had a bank account. He's in Vegas now. He's one of those guys that's so sharp. He could look like the race could be before it goes official. He would be like, horse is going to pay $12.80. He was right every time. He could look at the pool and figure out. He knew the slot machines in Vegas that would pay you like $30 an hour. He knew the ones that you could make money. He had a girlfriend. She just sat there and would make, and this was back in the day. So his brain was unreal. But he was, they called him the Boston Strangler. And he moved to Canterbury. And a lot of these big, Howard Slutsky was a huge pick six player in Vegas. And he moved, all these guys were in Shakopee, Minnesota. It's this, at the time, not developed farm town, playing the pick six because what's the best thing for a horse player? Big pools, bad bettors. These people had no idea what they were doing, and they were sending it to the window. So someone like you or my dad or Scott Miller had a field day. To give you an idea of how they had no clue what was going on, even the tellers. I think my dad probably spent $3,000 or $4,000 on a pick six, had 5 or 6, paid like $1,600. Went to the window, he lost like $2,000 or $3,000, and she was like smiling, "Congratulations!"
I know, I used to get that too. I got that too.
Congratulations, sir. He's like, "I just lost $3,000," but okay.
No, you get that. People don't know. Pick six scare. Okay, how your dad will appreciate this. $576 ticket. Okay, I bet it at Calder in August. It was at Saratoga, the pick six. Okay, but I bet at Calder. I was living in Florida, and it was a dark day at Calder, so they only had one little section open for simulcasting. Hardly anything was going down. Churchill Downs already owned Calder. Okay. So I bet my ticket. I go home and I watch the races. That's before I had Racing Track Network. I'm watching on TVG. You might even been covering them. So I go home, I watch the races, and in the last leg, I have a single. I remember who it is. May rest in peace. Garrett Gomez rode a horse named New York Dixie, who was a New York bred that was shipping in from the fairgrounds, running an open company, coming back running against state bred allowance horses at Saratoga, singled the horse. All kinds of trouble, block, steady, check, this, that. Garrett gets him out late and comes with that furious finish that he was known for. And it was a photo finish. I remember the announcer said, "Too close to call," but I knew I got it. Okay. Comes up $146,000. Beautiful. Okay. 2 winners. Okay. New York Dixie. $576 ticket. Next day, I head back to Calder. Okay. I go to the window. I used to bet with this guy, Al, is still a teller at Gulfstream today. Okay, he's very well known because he punches tickets with his pen like it's a machine. Bang, bang, bang. You think he's going to break the machine, but he's very good, accurate teller. So I go to his window, all right, and I give him the ticket, and he runs it in, and that's when you had to give them your social security number. You know what I mean? So he says, "What's your social?" So he runs it, and he goes, "I'll be right back, John." I'm like, "Okay." And he goes away, right? So now I'm wondering what's up, So he goes away, he comes back, he goes, "John, at the time, Ed Mackey, who I think is still the head of mutuals at Gulfstream Park," he says, "Ed Mackey, the director of mutuals, wants to see you." So I'm like, "Okay, where?" He goes, "Come back in here." And he took me back behind the way into an office. And I'm thinking on the way there, what could possibly be wrong? You know what I mean?
This is
I got the ticket, right? You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, it's 146,000. What's the problem? So he takes me in the office and he goes, and they knew who I was because I was a big better. He goes, "John," he goes, "I'm embarrassed to tell you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I don't have enough money to pay you." I says, "What?" He goes, "I don't have enough money to pay you." He goes, "And I can't even give you a check." I'm like, "That makes no sense, Ed. Why not?" He goes, "Well, Churchill Downs has a policy that I can't issue a check if we don't have enough money in our account to cover it. So I have to let them know, and they have to wire me the money before I could issue you the check." He goes, "And I only have a limited amount of cash because it's a simulcasting only day, and there's not a lot of big bettors here, and that would wipe us out. We couldn't continue." He goes, "I can't pay you. I can get you a check. It'll take a day or two with this, whatever." I'm like, "Look, here's what I want you to do for me, Ed. I don't want a check. You tell me when I can come back for the cash." He goes, "You can come back for the cash 2 days." I said, "Done deal. I'll be back. Give me the cash." Okay. I said, "Who holds the ticket, me or you?" He goes, "You could hold the ticket. It's not cash, even though we ran your social. Don't worry about it." I said, "Good. Give me the ticket. I'll come back 2 days for cash." Done deal. I leave. I was a little worried. I called Naira, and the head of the mutuals at Naira was Pat Mahoney, who used to be the head of mutuals at called her and knew me well from betting a lot of money. And I said, Pat, this just happened. Is this under the legit? He goes, yeah, don't worry about it. Ticket's good. They'll pay you in 2 days. So I wasn't worried. So the next day I go back, I go see Al. He goes, we're all ready for you. He goes, just give me the ticket. He ran the ticket, boom, boom, he pointed in. He goes, okay, come back. Takes me in the back. They had a brick, $100,000 brick. Okay. The rest of the money was all loose on the side, stacks of 10,000, whatever was on the, 100 and something thousand. Yeah, I think it was 120.
So you're in the money room at this point? Is that where you are?
No, it was a little office in the back.
Okay.
They never took me in the money room, but Ed Mackey was there and they had a machine that counts the money there. And he goes, listen, this brick, and it was $100,000 brick all wrapped. He goes, ran it through the machine. He goes, you can open it up and count it. He goes, it's up to you. I says, no, it's beautiful. It's like a work of art. I think I'm going to just put it on a coffee table. I said, it's actually bad because I'm never going to want to break it. And the way my lifestyle is, I may need to break it sooner than later, but it's going to be hard to break that, but no, throw it in the bag, threw the rest of the money in the bag. I took care of everybody and I left with $100,000 brick that I want to say about 8-9 months till I had to rip into it, you know what I mean? And it killed me to have to do it, because it really was beautiful. And I never was one to have a lot of people over my home, but I love showing it to anybody that actually made it awesome. My home. I was like, look at this. And it was nice brick for $100 grand. I had a picture of it on an old phone that I somehow lost. So there's no evidence.
Did you ever get, I guess I'll say effed by the moronic rule of Naira, because it cost me a pick 5 once for a lot of money. I loved a horse at Saratoga. I can't remember the horse's name. It's about 12 years ago, but the horse was part of an entry, and they were going to be like 11-1. They were 11-1 in the paddock. The part of the entry that I didn't like at all scratched. So I was like the third leg of a pick 5 or whatever. And so I get the post-time favorite because my horse, of course, is now invisible.
Right.
It is running for purse money only. And just the way I handicapped it, crushed 1 by 5. So I've never been more right about a race, and I lost money because he didn't exist. I had the favorite who didn't run second in the race, which would have been winning in the event. So instead of getting, and then I ended up hitting the pick 5. I think for me, it was like 10 to 20,000, somewhere on that. So before that, I didn't like horses running for purse money only in New York. And after that, after suffering that defeat that way while being right, a horse that I loved, actually, you can't have horses running races that you can't wager on. You just can't do it. They have that pace. They can knock in other horses. I understand. There's always the other side, but the other side isn't nearly as strong as the side I'm giving to not have them run.
I agree 100%. Yes, I have been burned by that rule. I think everybody that plays often enough eventually will get burned by that rule. And, the logic to me is we're investing money, okay? And we should be investing there's enough intangibles and enough, things that we have no control over, that to do that, I just think is unfair. And what I would actually prefer,
just get rid of entries altogether, like a lot of states have. We don't need entries. Don't we have a horse shortage population? I'm
okay with that, and I'm okay with if there's a scratch in a situation like that, I would rather you cancel my ticket, give me my money back, void my bet, take the money out of the pool. I made my bet calculating a ticket and structuring a ticket a certain way. If you're going to alter that without my okay, I'm not okay with that. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but I'm investing money. I look at making a bet like that as an investment. So I want to invest when I want to invest. And if there's a change, I should have the option of an out or a substitution of a different horse. But maybe I'm deliberately betting against the favorite in that race, and the horse that I would want to use instead of the favorite that you're giving me wins the race. Not right.
Yeah, I understand that, there's owners and the trainers and the people that get this horse ready, blah, blah, blah. He's ready to run. But it's more unfair to a lot more people.
I agree.
Than it would be to the 2, 4, 8 people involved in this horse that have to wait another week or two for their horse to compete again in a race. So I just think it's just, there's so many inconsistencies. We talked earlier in racing. I mentioned how Santa Anita got rid of the pick 6 back in the day briefly because they wanted to protect the smaller player, and they thought the pick 6 hurt churn because those people were investing all their money into that. So they care about churn, but yet they're getting a little better. I will say this, but they don't really care about takeout that much, which is the same thing. Right. I mean, if you care about churn, then you should care about takeout, because I always hate the argument when racetracks say, well, the average person doesn't understand takeout. They don't get it. They're not affected by it, but everyone knows how much money they have. Right. And if you lower takeout, you have more money. And if you have more money, then you're going to get your churn, which is what you're after. So you see kind of, I don't know, hypocrisy, but just inconsistencies across the board in this game that we love. But I do think they've gotten better in terms of takeout. I think we've done a better job of acknowledging the tracks that have very low takeout and how great that is, and the ones that need to work on it.
Right. And I think you see people gravitating to the lower takeout wagers, which I think, bolsters that argument somewhat. And I think the more we see that, the more we'll see people become cognizant of that. What is your dad's take on Naira's reintroduction of the $1 pick 6 as opposed to the 20-cent and the $2 as a way of trying to bring back the conventional way? Does he gravitate to that? Does he pay attention to it at all? What's his thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we kind of feel the same way on it. I mean, we prefer the $2, right? But I guess
better than nothing.
There can be compromise, right? I guess. Right. I mean, and he just despises the 20-cent. I guess there's exceptions, right, on Pegasus Day where it's a mandatory and the pool is going to be, I don't know, 8 trillion. I mean, maybe you get involved a day like that, and even if you can make some money, even if it's a bunch of $6 to $12 type winners, maybe you can make some money because the pool is so big. But yeah, I mean, someone like myself, I like Breeders' Cup. I would have no problem with $1 pick 6. I mean, it's so hard. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with $1 Breeders' Cup. I mean, what happened with Oaklawn? They were the last. They had the Classics pick 6. They don't have that.
No,
anymore?
They don't have it anymore, and they never really got the pool size what I thought it should be, but they got rid of it. I don't know why.
They gave up now. I mean, Oaklawn, their product has gotten so much better.
I agree.
People like my dad love Oaklawn because if you're an old player like my dad, you're a charts player. Right. I mean, we used to pour over the charts. I mean, we used to, like you probably did, the racing form stacked up to the ceiling. And then there was a guy at Del Mar, to big players, he'd go around the boxes and he would sell them. He would have them for like a binder. So my dad would have the charts and he would just pour over the charts. And the reason why he loves Oaklawn to this day, as an old guy who's a chart player, is that they had no turf and they only run a couple distances. So if you want to look at a 6 furlong race, there might be 7 6 furlong races on the day that you look up. So you can really analyze the strength or the weakness of that race because you can compare it to so many other races at that distance. So anyway, with the purses at Oaklawn and even the Arkansas bred program has gotten a lot better. Absolutely. Maybe gave up a little prematurely because that's a top signal, and I think they would have kept it. I think eventually it would have caught on.
I agree, but now it seems everybody just pushes those pick 4s and pick 5s, and I think that racetrack management is just under the belief that everybody wants the 50-cent minimum. Everybody wants that lower denomination minimum because they want to spread and do less work and just be able to buy tickets and spread out. And I just think that's such a bad long-term philosophy.
It's a bit of a cop-out. It is. It is. I mean, I can understand people that if you don't have to be a big bettor, right? I mean, you could be let's just say a $50 to $150, especially a pick 4, but even the pick 5 to a certain extent player, and you can get a lot of coverage. Right. You can just look at a race and go, oh, I got to use the favorite here, blah, blah, blah. This horse can't win. I'm going to go 5 deep here. And you're right. For a $2 pick 6, you better spend time on that race. I mean, it encourages laziness, I think. And by encouraging laziness, people don't hone their skills to become good horse players, and they eventually end up losing.
I agree. The best example was I know somebody that likes to bet those what they'll refer to as cowboy tickets, and he'll bet pick 5 tickets for 50 cents and spend $700, $800, $900. And I'm like, with your bankroll, you should make big scores. So one day he loves a horse in the pick 5. And he's bragging to me, look at this. I hit the pick 5 for 5,000. If I would have listened to you and bet a small ticket, I probably never would have hit it because I wouldn't have had all these other horses. I'm like, oh, so the horse you liked won, right? He goes, yes. I said, did you single him? He said, no, I used only 2 horses in that leg. I said, okay. And you think you won 5,000. I think you lost 5,000. If you loved that horse, you single him and you bet him for $1. He goes, and you cash for 10,000 instead of 5. It's just a different philosophy. You have to have that kill mentality to survive in this game.
I mean, he's had big scores on big tickets. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think the one he hit that I told you about, I think that was a $3,600 ticket. That's a pretty big ticket. But, you know, he's told me a lot of his bigger scores are on small tickets because you're in the zone. You look at a race and you love that. You're hot that day. Right. So, and if you're somebody who's not afraid to single and you have confidence and you can get hot, maybe you don't have to go that, you don't have to go that deep in certain races. You're just feeling good that day. Your opinion is strong. So a lot of his big scores have been on backup tickets or small tickets. Myself too, I played a different level, but a lot of my bigger scores, when I spend a lot of money, I generally don't do very well. It's not tiny tickets, but it's the smaller type tickets where I get a single or 2 home at prices where I've had my most success. I mean, I always think, I think I use the all button all the time. I think there's a place for the all button. I'm not opposed to the all button, but I do think that if you talk to players, like I'm talking to you, you talk to people who have big hits, and most of their big hits were when they got lucky with the all button. Right. To me, that tells me that they're probably not a great player if their biggest scores have come away. It's okay. I mean, we've all had them because of the all button.
I've never had a big score with the all button. I hardly ever use it. And if I do, you can pretty much rest assured that the favorite wins.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it's the person that only gets a long shot by going all, because they would never single that horse or they never go 3 deep. The only way they get that horse that paid $60 or $50 or $70 is by going all in that race. And to me, there's skill in going all, knowing which race to go all in, but there's more luck, I think, than the guy who has the big score that singles the 43-40 horse.
Yeah, I'm curious if you think I'm right about this, because you alluded to it, and I've pondered it for years, and I've had similar experiences where you make some of your biggest scores on smaller tickets. Like I remember one time I bet 6,000 in the Breeders' Cup, pick 6, and I got knocked out in the first leg. And okay. Sure. One of the things I've come to love is when I do a pick 6 sequence or a pick 5 sequence, and my ticket is not that deep, I get excited because I'm like, okay, I've got some good opinions.
Exactly.
There's a chance I'm right. When I do a pick 5 ticket, and before I start narrowing and cutting down, I'm already at 800 for 50 cents. I'm like, you know what? I just don't have a good handle on this sequence. If I hit it, it's going to be because I got lucky, not because I'm on my game, you know? And I think those races, like, I don't know if you've ever had experiences where, you know, you're alive in a 12 horse field with 8 or 9 horses and you get beat. Okay. And I have come to the conclusion that that's because in those races, when you have to go that deep, you really don't have a good opinion. And you're fishing a little bit, and that's when you get burned, as opposed to if you've got 2 or 3 horses in a 12 horse field, you probably have a good opinion and you have a better chance of winning. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a small player, medium player, or a big player. If you're a medium player and you usually spend $48, but all of a sudden you think you got to spend $196 on this, that means that you don't have much of an opinion. You're going deeper in races because you don't really like that particular race. Right. So when your opinion's good, it's usually when you're obviously the horse that you like, who's your top pick, wins. So it doesn't matter if you're yourself, if you're a $1,000 pick 5 player, now you're paying $6. That's not it. That means you don't really like the sequence that much. You don't feel good about it. If you're a $200 player and you're spending $1,000, it's the same thing. It just depends on how much you bet personally into it. But yeah, no, I've found that as well, that some of my big scores have been on very small tickets.
Right. It's amazing. I'm glad we got to talk, and I apologize for this show running longer than I thought it
No,
was.
it's been fun.
When you get passionate people about the sport, that tends to happen. But I'm glad also that we got to talk a little bit with you outside of your, Fan Duel and TVG role, because I think a lot of times within that role, and I want to word this correctly, the amount of knowledge and really savvy playing skill that some of you guys have, and I'm speaking specifically about you now, nobody else, but the savviness and skill that you guys have gets lost in the on-air persona that, you're working, you're doing a job, you're covering races, you're not really talking like we're talking right now about, betting and strategies and, pick sixes and whatnot, because, there you have a job to do, and sometimes that doesn't come across, and people may not realize how much you actually know. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just not your role to portray that in that light,
Well, and you don't have the time, right? I mean, we're showing. I mean, I work tonight. I know this show's gonna be aired later, but if you ever like anything at Turfway Park, let me know. Boy, I mean, that's a fun track to handicap, isn't it? But it's so hard. I mean, I like it. It's really, really hard. I'm not on a tangent right now, but a lot of tracks suffer from field size. And even the tracks that have big field sizes, sometimes you're like, okay, it's an 11-horse field, but 6 can't win. So it's a 5-horse field. Turfway, it's like a 12-horse field and 11 can win. I mean, it makes it really difficult. But yeah, but when you're covering, when you're bouncing around, trying to get in as many live races as you can, and you have commercials, and you have another person working, and you might have people on another location, and you have reporters. It does make it difficult. You can't have a conversation like this. If you do, it's a sound bite of 20 to 25 seconds, but you really can't dig into it like we're doing now, which is something I don't get to do very often. Probably the last time I was able to do it was when I did back in the day when I hosted Blinkers Off with Watchmaker. I mean, we were able to do some of this, and I miss it because it's fun, because it's a great game. The pick six is the best wager the game's ever had, and I know things change, but it is a shame that the $2 pick six that you loved and made so much money on, that my dad loved, that it's extinct.
It is. It's extinct. It changed my life. I mean, I made my living off that for years and years and years, and it was a big blow to me as it was to some other people. We'll close with this. Now that we know it is extinct, at least except for those couple of days, what's your dad's main wager, go-to wager today?
I think he doesn't play like he used to.
Meaning,
first of all, he doesn't play like he used to. He plays the pick five. He'll play the pick six like you on Breeders' Cup days. He'll play it maybe if there's a rainbow, if it's the mandatory. But I think the pick five. But he's also kind of like you. He doesn't want to force it. So he'll play the pick five, but if he thinks the pick five and he's going to spend more money than he should on it, then he'll go after the pick four. So I think he's pretty simple now. He's always been a win guy. Right. He's always been a win player, and he's always never been afraid to play huge long shots. And I was taught not to bet to show, and I think that was smart. I think betting to place is debatable. I don't do that either, but I understand the people that do. I get that argument that you should bet to place with long shots.
I've never done it. I don't do it. But
I don't do it either. But the other thing that I think he does is he'll find races in which he doesn't like favorites. And I try to do this too. Instead of betting to place, you bet your horse to win, then you might wheel underneath. Because if your horse is 15-1 and it's a 10-horse field and you don't like the favorite, if you think the favorite's the horse that you have to beat, maybe you don't do it. But if you despise low or the favorite, your horse is 15-1 in a 10-horse field, and your horse runs second, and you're right about the favorite sneaking, that exacta is going to pay huge. So he likes to do things like that. But he kind of bets the same, I guess, the wagers you'd expect him to
Right.
wager at this point, but I know he does miss the pick six dearly.
Yeah, no, he and I as well. I've never met him. I feel like I know him. Send him my best. Matt, thank you so much. I know I took a lot of your time and you're a busy guy, man, but I could talk all day with you about this kind of stuff. So I apologize for that. But
No, it was my pleasure. I don't know how long we've been doing it. It's flown by, so you're welcome, and have me on again.
yeah, I will for sure. Thank you for coming on. You do a great job, great work. Go hit some tickets and all the best, man. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Ciao.
Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
History remembers moments of extraordinary strength, skill, and determination. True greatness is forged by those who fulfill their destiny.
Nobody does it better.